Mac Jones and Travion Henderson are sneaky good plays this week. We get into the best sleepers and DFS plays for week 6 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. On today's episode, we are going to get into our favorite sleepers of the week. We'll both pick our favorite sleeper at each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And then we'll get into our picks of the week, and our FanDuel lineup to close out the show. So, Vinny, let's start right with our sleepers here at quarterback. Who is your quarterback sleeper of the week?
Yeah, this one is pretty easy for me. I'm going with Mac Jones. I said wherever Baker Mayfield travels, there's a wild game where Baker Mayfield has to lead a comeback somewhere, and there's just a lot of points being scored. So Mac Jones has got the job done here in multiple occasions when Brock Purdy's been hurt. By the way, Brock Purdy's 2 games where he was healthy, really good fantasy numbers. So it's really, again, the system is really working well here for the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan has been on point with whoever's out there with his quarterback to produce. So again, Mac Jones has got a lot of weapons, even whatever happens with Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. We might not know for a while exactly what their status is with the extra time coming off that Thursday night game. But I think there's enough there that they can put it together here. Christian McCaffrey is always going to be a big asset in the passing game. The Bucs give it up. They do have some issues all over in their pass coverage. So I think he's also going to have to throw for volume with Mayfield on the other side. I'm expecting this to be another high-scoring game because the Bucs and 49ers are involved.
Yeah, it should be a high-scoring game. I am excited for that one. I like that pick by you. My sleeper of the week at quarterback will be Matthew Stafford against the Ravens. He has thrown 3 touchdowns and has had at least 25 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks. And there's no reason to think that's going to change this week against this Ravens, just atrocious secondary and defense overall. The Ravens have allowed the most passing touchdowns in the league this year, and second most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season as well. Patrick Mahomes and CJ Stroud, who's not known for throwing a ton of passing touchdowns, right? They've each thrown 4 touchdowns against the Ravens in the last 2 weeks. So I think Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Davante Adams are all going to just have huge games against this Ravens secondary this week.
Yeah, it's funny. Those 2 guys played each other at quarterback in week 5. So now we have this separation that they're going to keep putting up points, staying hot in different games on the road on the East Coast. Now, my running back sleeper, Michelle, is I think it's a layup this week. People might be wondering who's going to touch the ball. I'm going in with Hassan Haskins. All I need to know is he played in Michigan, and that's all I need to know. With Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, look, Kimani Vidal is an okay player, but Haskins, everything, all indications, reports, practice, all that stuff, that Haskins is going to be the first guy up to get the key touches here, including potential red zone work. We know this team can score rushing touchdowns. We saw with J.K. Dobbins last year, Omari Hampton before he was hurt. So I think the Chargers are going to come in. Look, they're skidding here. Like, I'm hoping the Eagles play like this in their next game, but the Chargers are just kind of reeling. They got to use the Dolphins defense to get right. So I do like a lot of things, the Chargers, and if that's the case, they can build a lead. Haskins is the guy that can go downhill in the second half for Roman and Harbaugh, kind of close out the Dolphins. So I do like a lot of things Chargers this week, but Haskins is one of them.
I'm going to go with Travion Henderson against the Saints as my running back sleeper of the week. It has not, if you drafted Henderson, you have not been happy whatsoever, and you haven't been able to play him But now with Antonio Gibson out with the torn ACL, I do think this opens up opportunity for Henderson, because it's not that he was just stuck behind Ramondre Stevenson. He was also splitting those second running back snaps with Antonio Gibson. So it's just absolutely killing him. But last week with Gibson going down, Henderson did play a career high 50% of the team snaps. That could increase this week even more, right? And hopefully he gets more touches on those snaps as well. But the Saints have been allowing opposing running backs to score fantasy points. At least one opposing running back has scored 11 or more fantasy points in each of the games against the Saints this year, with Christian McCaffrey, James Cook, and Kenneth Walker all scoring at least 18 fantasy points against them. So there's fantasy points to be had. I do like Ramondre Stevenson this week, but I also think Travion Henderson could have a sneaky good week as well.
Yeah, I like that pick by you. Again, it's going to go back and forth. I mean, the Patriots, again, are remaining fickle with their running backs here. A hot hand approach, I still think, is in play, and Henderson could have a hot hand there in New Orleans. Very good track where he can run fast there in the Superdome. Now, I'm going at wide receiver with Calvin Austin III. Look, the Browns are having trouble at the corner away from Denzel Ward, whether it's someone in the slot or someone to the outside here. So that's good news for Calvin Austin away from DK Metcalf. I figure Ward will be on Metcalf. I'm not scared of Ward whatsoever on Metcalf, but it trickles down from there. It's not very good. We know the Browns defense also not very good on the road. The other thing that Aaron Rodgers is going to be well aware of is the fact that Myles Garrett in this pass rush wants to get to him. So he's going to try to get the ball out of his hands more quickly this week. Shorter passes to the running backs, maybe incorporate more of those two tight end sets for extra blocking, but also coming into play with that is trying to get big plays after the catch from Calvin Austin, get him in the open field and do that kind of thing. So Metcalf might be a little muted. He might need a touchdown to really get through here if you can't throw deep and the pressure is going to come after Rodgers. But I think Austin is going to see pretty good volume here. So I think he's a sneaky wide receiver 3 in PPR leading leagues. I like him better in full PPR, but you could also play him in half if you're hurting here. Again, two guys off this week, Justin Jefferson and Nico Collins.
Yeah, I like that. Now I'm going to go really deep here with Isaiah Bond, the rookie for the Cleveland Browns in the same game. Yes. So over the last 3 weeks, he's played on nearly 60% of the Browns offensive snaps. He's seen 6 and 7 targets over the last 2 games, and his targets have increased each week throughout his first 5 career games. Now, he has very fast speed, 4.39, right? And he keeps showcasing that. And he needs to be a little bit more consistent with his targets, but he has come down with at least a 20-yard or longer reception in each of the last 2 weeks. And the Steelers have allowed the 3rd most receiving yards per game to the wide receiver position this year. So, like, right before their bye, we saw Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison just eating them up with chunk plays, right? Like, huge chunk plays. You can do that against the Steelers secondary. I think Isaiah Bond has at least a couple big receptions in this game.
Yeah, and he might become more fantasy relevant with bigger points than Matthew Golden, the way things are going right now. His former Texas teammate, again, undrafted was Bond, but he has first-round talent for sure, going back to his days at Alabama as well. I really like this receiver coming out of college. Now, let's go to tight end. And someone asked me, look, Brenton Strange went on IR, and I had Brenton Strange pretty high. I thought he could be a top 12 pick if you were checking out our quarterback tight end rankings. Well, just erase the player name and just put in Hunter Long instead. Hunter Long immediately saw more action once Brenton Strange got hurt. He's seen a lot of snaps. He's seen the end zone here this season. The Seahawks, again, are really bad against the tight end. And look, Trevor Lawrence needs to find something here. He doesn't always throw to Travis Etienne. The Seahawks are bad against running backs. He's going to need someone here, right, to fill in Strange's shoes, because he was a big factor in terms of coming after Brian Thomas Jr. getting open. So Hunter Long's going to have to do that. The matchup is there. I think Trevor Lawrence right now is kind of in the middle of dinking and dunking and all that stuff. So Brian Thomas, you've seen the shorter passes to him. So I think Long takes advantage of that against the Seahawks. I like the Jaguars in this game. So I like Long also to produce for them.
All right. Like it. I'm going to go with Mason Taylor against the Broncos. He has emerged as Justin Fields' second favorite target over the last few weeks. Since week 3, Mason Taylor has the second most targets, receptions, and receiving yards on the Jets, behind only Garrett Wilson in each. And Taylor, Wilson, and Breece Hall are the only Jets players with more than 6 targets over the last 3 weeks. So it's really all the targets are being condensed to those 3 players. And Taylor has seen his targets increase each week of his NFL career. Now, I don't think they can keep increasing because he saw 12 targets last Sunday, but and he ended up with 13.2 fantasy points. You'll take that because he didn't even have a touchdown in half PPR. But with this tough matchup for Garrett Wilson with Pat Surtain and coverage, the targets have to keep going to Mason Taylor. So I feel good about him this week. He's yet to score a touchdown. That still may not come, but as long as the targets and receptions are there, I think he's a solid play.
Yeah, Mason Taylor, look, he's in the offense. Like, he's going to have up and down games. Like, I think I talk about Dalton Schultz, right? I mean, he was getting the work, and then all of a sudden he had one game where he became relevant because he was really the key target in the first half for CJ Stroud in Baltimore. So that can happen here in this situation as well. You can will a player to have production. So, like that pick by you, like all our picks this week.
Let's get into our picks of the week. So if you like to play daily fantasy football, or you just want to hear more of our, the guys that we think we're going to have good fantasy weeks, stay here and we will give you our favorite picks of the week. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Their Trade Master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. So join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, we're each going to give you our 3 favorite picks of the week. Vinny, start with your favorite one that you feel the best about.
Yeah, I looked at it, and I really like one particular player this week. And the tight ends, a lot of them have good matchups, the top tight ends for sure. Well, I like Tyler Warren a lot. 51.5 receiving yards at home against the Cardinals. Look, it seems like we talk about the Cardinals every year as a team that cannot cover the tight end or struggles or has issues. Well, you just need to look at last week's game, okay? Bear with me here. I know it was the Titans, but it's Chig Okonkwo and Gunnar Helm. They combined for a big game, and they've been giving it up to committees like this all season long. Well, Warren is not in a committee. Finally, the Colts are done with that stuff. Warren is the guy. He's going to dominate this matchup. I think he can have a huge game. He knows Trey McBride's on the other side. He wants to prove himself here. I think he goes off. So I think 100 and a score for sure for Warren. I don't know how that score will come. It doesn't matter because we're talking about receiving yards, 51.5 more easily. I think he gets double this in this game against the Cardinals. Just too good of a matchup here for Tyler Warren to smash this week.
Love that. I'm going to go with a tight end as well. Jake Ferguson, more than 13 fantasy points against the Panthers this week. He's averaging 17.2 points per game on average. With PrizePicks, it's full point per reception scoring. So in that scoring, he's averaging 17.2 points per game. The last 4 weeks, he's easily hit this number at 16.8, 21.2, 17, and 23.9, getting so many targets. And the Panthers are allowing the second most fantasy points per game to the tight end position this year at 18 points per game. Darren Waller last week just put up 18.8 points against the Panthers. So again, Jake Ferguson's going to smash this, more than 13 fantasy points.
All right, I'm going to go with another back that I like to catch passes this week. It's often a thing I do with the PrizePicks picks of the week. I'm going with Breece Hall. Like, I looked at other things. Travis Etienne has a good matchup, but he doesn't really catch a lot of passes. Breece Hall is known for doing that. And the Broncos, again, we've talked about it. Look, we've been up and down in this Jets matchup, what we're going to get from all these guys. But we figure, again, with the targets going to Garrett Wilson and the aforementioned Mason Taylor and Hall, this is where the passing game goes. Wilson could have a tough matchup. They're going to have to throw some balls underneath to Breece Hall to get him going this week. So I really like it. 29.5. It's a very manageable number. You're not looking for 40, 45, 50, somewhere there. I think that's where you'll probably end up, but I like it at 29.5 against the Broncos in London.
My next one, I'm going to go with Ashton Jeanty, more than 16.5 fantasy points against the Titans. Now, he's only had more than 16.5 fantasy points in one game so far in his NFL career. He got close last week at 15.9. What was really nice to see last week that he was finally involved in the passing game, right? So if they do go down against the Titans, I don't see why they should, but at least they have shown they're willing to utilize him in that area finally. But he should get so many rushing opportunities in this game. Should be a close game, and the Titans are a bad run defense. They're allowing the third most fantasy points per game to running backs. The last 3 weeks, Jonathan Taylor put up 32 fantasy points against them. Woody Marks scored 28, and then Michael Carter last week hit 18.3. If Michael Carter can score 18 fantasy points against the Titans and Ashton Jeanty can't, there's going to be a problem, right? We need him to go off in this game. I think he ends up as a top 3 running back this week. So I am more than happy to take more than 16.5 fantasy points for Ashton Jeanty against the Titans.
Yeah, that's another way you can play the PrizePicks. Look at the fantasy points, and if you want to go that way versus looking at receptions or rush attempts or pass attempts or yards, this is a good way to also get in on PrizePicks because it's a little different, and you can also play along with your fantasy team if you believe in someone. Now, I got to reveal my PrizePicks. I guess it's the quarterback rushing PrizePick of the week. It's Justin Herbert, 19.5 rushing yards more than against the Dolphins. Now, Dolphins do give up quite a bit of rushing yards to the quarterback. Now, really the teams that struggle the most are facing kind of statues back there. The Bills facing Michael Penix. He's not going to run. Jared Goff is not going to run against the Chiefs. So he was the guy that we could have targeted if we wanted to go back to that Trevor Lawrence matchup from last week. But Herbert is in the best spot. He's taking off and running when he needs to. The running game might need some supplementing this week. He did have a big rushing game last week against the Commanders. So, look, they need to get it going. He wants to take charge. He needs to win this game. He needs to prove himself with Tua, his draft mate from 2020 on the other side. He's going to be all over the place. Again, Chargers also give up rushing yards, but Tua couldn't fall over and get rushing yards. So I'm going with Justin Herbert being the much more athletic quarterback of the two in this one.
Herbert really has to have a monster game this week that it needs to come through against the Dolphins. So I like that. I'm going to go with a quarterback pick here as well. Mac Jones, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's actually a demon pick. So if it hits, you actually make more money on this. But I mean, in 2 of his 3 starts, he's had multiple passing touchdowns, 3 in week 2 against the Saints and 2 last week against the Rams. And both of those were on the road, right? So he's on the road again this week in Tampa Bay. But the Buccaneers have allowed their opposing quarterback to score at least 2 passing touchdowns in each of the last 3 weeks. Tyrod Taylor put up 2 passing touchdowns in week 3. Jalen Hurts had 2 against them in week 4. And then last week, Sam Darnold had 4 passing touchdowns against the Buccaneers. They're just banged up in the secondary. So I like Mac Jones to throw at least 2 in this game.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. Again, you got some interesting non-yardage related stuff, and I went all yards this week, receiving, and rushing. So good stuff there with our PrizePicks of the week. There's more good stuff coming up. We'll have our FanDuel lineups for you here. So what we're doing in DFS, how we're constructing them, we'll have that for you right after this quick break. All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season here is FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss here going into Week 6. Yeah, hard to believe it's already Week 6. Right now, new customer can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win, that's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. With FanDuel, it makes watching even more exciting than you've got something A little bit riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better as you follow along. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today. Again, FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started with your action only on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Michelle, time to close the show with our much anticipated FanDuel lineups. I know everyone's been waiting. We might put some of the lessons we learned earlier in the show to work here. So I'll let you go first. You can pick and reveal your quarterback.
I paid up at quarterback, the most expensive one in the main slate, Justin Herbert at 8,500. Like I said, he has to have a monster game. It has been since week 1. He has not put together a big fantasy day, but against this Dolphins defense that's allowing so many fantasy points to the quarterback position, I'm willing to pay up for him.
Yeah, I like it. Again, we are paying attention to what we did earlier in the show, and I hope you are too, because my quarterback is someone that has already been mentioned. It is Mac Jones. So I'm going the different route. I'm going the cheap route at quarterback here. He was at 7,500, so I went down quite a bit. I thought about how low could I go? Would I go all the way down to Dylan Gabriel? I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. So I'm going to Mac Jones here, kind of in the nice price range. He's banged up. I get it, but Brock Purdy's not going to play. Jones is starting. He's going to Tampa and putting up those numbers.
Now, for my wide receivers, I went with Quentin Johnston to go with Justin Herbert for that stack. I just think Johnston's the best bet to, come down with a touchdown or two. He is dealing with a bit of a hamstring injury, which has kept him limited in practice, so keep an eye out for that. But if he's good to go, happy to play him. My other two wide receivers are going to go Davante Adams against the Ravens because, we love Matthew Stafford this week, right? And we expect him to throw a bunch of touchdowns. One of them is going to go to Davante Adams. And then I feel like I play this guy every week, and one of these times it's going to hit. It's Tetairoa McMillan. His price continues to stay low, and against the Cowboys, he has to come down with his first NFL touchdown, please. So I'm sticking with him this week. And my 3 wide receivers, Quentin Johnston, Tetairoa McMillan, and Davante Adams.
Well, I have 2 of the same, and I'll tell you who I don't have the same. It's Quentin Johnston. But getting a Davante Adams, his price is $7,800. It's a really good price, so you don't have to pay all the way up to Puka Nacua. Tetairoa McMillan, look, the Cowboys allow the most fantasy points in the FanDuel scoring system. 2 wide receivers, so it's now or never for McMillan to get it going and really have a big game. So McMillan and Adams are good. I'm going with Calvin Ridley as the third one. The Raiders' secondary stinks. He was a very nice price, and I wanted to save a little bit of money here. $5,700 was his cost, so I could get some other guys I liked through running back and flex. And this is my other bargain. I have another bargain coming up at running back.
Yeah, I have a big bargain in my flex. We'll get to that. But my running backs, Ashton Jeanty, paying up for him at $8,000. I just think he's going to have a monster game against the Titans. I mentioned that in my PrizePicks picks of the week that I think he's going to clearly hit that 16.5 fantasy points. I think he easily has 25 fantasy points in this matchup. And then my other one, I'm going to go Ramondre Stevenson. I called Travion Henderson a sleeper of the week, but I think Stevenson's a good play because Antonio Gibson going down, that could mean more snaps for Stevenson as well, who's been dominating third down snaps on this team and goal line carries. So I like his price at $5,700. He was pretty cheap. He's actually $100 cheaper than Travion Henderson. So I went with Stevenson here.
Yeah, I like that. I like those picks for sure because I like one of them a lot more than the other because that's my pick also, Ashton Jeanty. So again, we don't confer on these. We kind of have an idea. We do think a lot alike in terms of what we're looking at with the matchups, and we gave you a lot of information in the show that should lead you to why we're doing all these things. So Ashton Jeanty makes a lot of sense. I mean, he should really smash that matchup. They needed to. I think Pete Carroll's mad at Chip Kelly, which means Pete Carroll is going to say, you better run the ball 30 times in this game and take it out of Geno Smith's hands. So That's what I think he'll do. Hassan Haskins is my other one. I like him a lot this week. He was just so cheap because I wanted to save some money and figure out tight end and wide receiver with the flex. So I went with Haskins just for the value.
Now, because I went so expensive with Justin Herbert and Jeanty, Davante Adams wasn't too expensive, but still top there. I had to go cheaper in my flex, and I'm going with Isaiah Bond. I said he's a sleeper of the week at wide receiver, and I'm going with my call here. I do think he can have one of those big play touchdowns, and that's really all that I need from him with his cost at 4,700. Like, that's just base mid. That's such a low cost. So going with Isaiah Bond in my flex.
Yeah, I like that. My flex is DK Metcalf in the same game. Again, I just had some money left over for him. I might as well reveal my tight end, why I could afford DK Metcalf. 7,200. A lot of reasons I could afford him because I played Haskins, Ridley, and Jones. But my tight end is Tucker Kraft. We said how the Bengals are terrible against the tight end. Tucker Kraft sneakily has been kind of up and down. He's been banged up, but I think he'll play well at home. I think that's a big deal. Like, I think being at home, I think he can rip into that Bengals really bad coverage. They allowed a big game to Sam Laporta last week, as we've documented earlier in the week.
Yeah, Bengals allowing the most fantasy points to tight ends this year. I also went with Tucker Kraft because he wasn't the most expensive. He's like third or fourth, and we love his matchup. We know he has super high upside in any given week. So went with him. And then my defense to close it out, I went with the Raiders against the Titans. You always like to play your running back in defense, the same team. I'm taking that advice there, and I'm doing that for the Raiders to beat up on Cam Ward in that offense.
Yeah, I'm not doing that this week, and I also realized I am playing Mac Jones naked. We don't want to think about that more than this, but that's how the kids in the industry call it without a stack here. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, so it might be, you might want to think about this in cash games as well if you go in that direction. Now with my defense, I went with the Jaguars. I don't know why the Jaguars keep being underrated.
Yeah.
Like, they were available in a lot of leagues. They force turnovers every week. It's like that year that
10 interceptions this year already.
Yeah. And last week they had a big play from Devin Lloyd. Like, we didn't think it was going to happen against the Chiefs, and they got it done in that matchup as well. So again, the Jaguars, I have to just say, I mean, their new defense, Anthony Campanelli, he's been fantastic. It's like the defense they used to have there with Calais Campbell and Jalen Ramsey. It's almost like the second version of that. They should be played every week, folks. This is how good this defense is. Forcing turnovers, getting sacks, what we want in fantasy. And the Seahawks traveling a long way. I mean, Sam Darnold is not some pristine quarterback. Things are going to happen for Sam Darnold this game, especially if they get behind. They can't run the ball.
Yeah, Sam Darnold can definitely throw an interception or two in this game. So I was thinking about the Jaguars. To run down my lineup, I have Justin Herbert at quarterback, Ashton Jeanty and Ramondre Stevenson at running back, Teteroa, McMillan, Davante Adams, and Quentin Johnston at wide receiver, with Isaiah Bond in my flex, Tucker Kraft at tight end, and the Raiders defense.
Yeah, so I'm playing Mac Jones. I'll just say by himself without a stack this week at quarterback. The Jaguars by themselves at defense. Then in the middle, Hassan Haskins, Ashton Jeanty, and the running backs. Davante Adams, Calvin Ridley, Teteroa McMillan, wide receiver, DK Metcalf on the side as the flex, and Tucker Kraft as the tight end.
That will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Roland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you all win your Week 6 fantasy matchups. We'll be back with you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye, y'all.